Namaste. Welcome to this session. We have been dealing with the Abhyasa as one of the means to restrain the mind, restrain the chitta. And Abhyasa is a set of efforts to be calm the mind, be steady the mind. So that is what the Abhyasa is. That it is an effort which is divulged by yoga, prescribed by yoga tradition, divulged by yoga philosophy, divulged by yoga shastra, to be steady the mind, be calm the mind. Because unless the mind is steady, it will not be going to restraint. First of all, the mind must be steadied. The mind is always in motion, always in movement, because it is made up of matter which is essentially fleeting flux. Now, what does it mean to steady the mind? It should be understood that the body can be frozen to a state called statue. And then children are used to playing this game. They freeze the body by that statue. So somebody says statue to them and they freeze their body in whatever position it is. And they maintain it until they are told relax. So the body can be frozen to a statue state for some time. That is the peripheral body, the limb part of the body where there are voluntary movements created, that will be given a statue. You can't give statue to involuntary system in the body. You freeze your hands and legs and head and trunk in a position that you are. But then you can't really give statue to metabolic process, cellular process. It is involuntary process. It's not a voluntary process. So we have to understand the limitation of the meaning. Steady the body. Even in the game of shooting, etc., aiming, shooting, the body is steadied. Now, what is really steadied? That means the voluntary movements are given a seizure. There is cessation of voluntary movement. However, the involuntary movement continues, heartbeat continues, the palpitation continues, the involuntary system continues to function. But however, that body can be given a statue condition for some time, where we only refrain from any voluntary movement. Now, can there be a statue to mind? Can you ask somebody to stop the mind? So, when it comes to stopping the mind, it means the mind is not really frozen to a statue form, but consistent flow of the mind itself is called steady mind. So in yoga psychology, that is called sadrusha parinama. The modulations in mind are similar in pattern rather than dissimilar in pattern. So when the mind flows in a similar pattern, it is called consistent mind, and that is called steady mind. The mind is anyway going to be flowing. Mind will flow. But the mind flows in a consistent manner and not in inconsistent manner. So that's what is meant by steady mind. Steady mind means not stopped mind. Steady mind doesn't mean frozen mind, or there is no seizure to mind. When the mind flows in a consistent flow, the content of the mind remains the same. The content of the mind doesn't change in dimensions and forms and shapes and colors. So it flows consistently. That is steady mind. So also breath. Steady breath. Steady breath means what? Consistency in its flow. No spikes in breath and breathing. So we have to understand this steadiness. When it is referred to body, what is steadiness? With reference to breath, what is steadiness? With reference to mind, what is steadiness? And here we are looking for steadying the mind, the processes to steadying the mind or be steady the mind. So the mind will be in flow, but the mind should be in a consistency. The mind should have identical content rather than changing contents. Otherwise, the mind contents will be changing. If you try to take vision of your own mind, you will see that the mind is flowing, and then dissimilar objects are appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing, coming and going, coming and going. And the contents of the mind, bizarre. They are bizarre contents of the mind. So that is unsteady mind. Steady mind is also in flow. Unsteady mind is also in a flow. But steady mind is with a consistent content, and unsteady mind is with inconsistent content. So the steady mind is like river flowing on plains. Unsteady mind is river flowing down the valleys. The river is in any case flowing. So how is the river flowing when it is rough terrain or valley kind of thing, where the river flows with a ferocity? And how is the river flowing on plains? Serene flow of the river, we say quietly flowing. Serene flow, quiet flow. The river is anyway flowing. So river flows even down the slopes. River flows even on a plain terrain. Similarly, the mind, when it is flowing like that river, is said to be steady river. There is no ferocity. There is no turbulence. But when the river is jumping down the valleys, then there is that ferocity. So that is unsteady condition of river, unconditioned steady of mind. Mind is also like that. The mind will have ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. We don't see river flowing upwards. River flows downwards or river flows on a plain terrain. The mind flows upwards and downwards as well, and also on a plain terrain. So when it is flowing on plain terrain, there is consistency, and that is steadiness of the mind. Steadiness of the breath is also similar concept, where there are no inconsistencies, there are no spikes, there are no ups and downs. Rhythm, consistency, and soothe in the flow, smoothness in the flow. So, steady body, steady mind, steady breath have different characteristics, is what we have to understand. Now, here we are considering with the steady mind, or efforts to be steady the mind. Now, in the last session, I told you towards the end of it, I brought the concept of field of activity. Now, what is the field of activity? Field of activity means the field in which our activities is on. Activities are going on. Activities are carried out. Like office work done in office, then that place is called field of activity. The same office work when done at home, the field of activity is different. It is done at home. So there is a difference, significant difference in the culture of the same work carried out in a place for which the place which is appointed for that work, like office. You go to office and do office work, but you can be back home and doing the office work with which we are very, very familiar today. So the field of activity means where the activity is carried out. Now it can be suitable or unsuitable. It can be compatible or incompatible. So we don't like to carry out activity in an incompatible field. We don't want to carry out incompatible activity in a field. So field of activity, this notion has to be understood. Now, what is the field of activity in our mundanity, business activity of life? So we go to office, we are supposed to do relevant kind of work. We go to recreation center, we need to do relevant kind of work. We go to shrine, temples, we need to do relevant kind of work. We go to a holiday resort, we need to carry out relevant kind of activity there. So, field of activity means the field in which you are carrying out activity. Now, in our business activity of life, how is the field of activity? We have to go out in society. We must have social consciousness. We must have social mind. So, out in society, what do we have? Likes and dislikes, if you recall. In the previous session, I told you. We encounter likes and dislikes. Something is there that we like. Something is there that we don't like. Something is there that we like it very much. Something is there that we don't like it very much. We dislike it very much. We hate it very much. So the field of activity is itself an uneven terrain, because there are ups and downs of likes and dislikes, loves and loathes, attachment and aversions. So this is how we have the field of activity, where the dualities are prominently engaged with each other, or the dualities are going to appear and alternate. So there will be constant alternation taking place between what is good for us, what is bad for us, what is liked by us, what is disliked by us, what is loved by us and what is loathed by us, or what is loved by us and what is hated by us. So we are going to get this uneven terrain in our business activity of life. Sometimes conducive, sometimes not conducive. Sometimes claimant, sometimes inclaimant. Sometimes likable, sometimes dislikable. Sometimes lovable, sometimes hateable. So, see the field of activity for business activity of life, which starts on your awakening. When you wake up in the morning, your activity of awakeful state commences. And then this is how the field of activity is. That you will see that there is something that you like, something that you dislike. Something you think it is good for you and something that is not good for you. But you will counter it. Just because it is bad, it is not that you will be able to miss it or take an evasive action. Sometimes it is inevitable. So see, the very terrain is rough terrain. And therefore you will have roller coaster ride in business activity of life. So see how the drive will be and negotiation will be. So that is how external realm of activity is, that the field of activity is sometimes suitable, sometimes not suitable, or even if it is suitable, it will be alternating to be becoming unsuitable for a while, again come back to suitability, again go to unsuitability. So also if it is unsuitable, sometimes something to some extent will become suitable for a while and again will be alternated. So this alternation is characteristic of field of activity. Then therefore it becomes difficult to have consistency. So that's how the field of activity is in the external realm. Maybe that field of activity is something where you have your economic activity carried out, your business activity carried out, or it might be a field where you are encouraging your hobby. You are engaged in your hobby. So the terrain is going to be rough, uneven, with ups and downs, which will give you spike condition to your mind. So mind cannot find that consistency or that plane, like a river has a plane. River comes to a plane sometimes. So the mind might have plane for a short while, but again there will be turbulence. It will be alternated, plane to unplane. So that is how the field of activity, because you will be interacting with someone else. You will be interacting with other person, other things. So many things come and go in front of you. So many people come and go in front of you. So many people come, stay for a while and go away. So look at that field of activity. Then the field of activity is also fraught with gravities, which I said just now. Likes and dislikes, loves and loathes, and loves and hates. So there will be gravities. There will be gravities. When you say love, likes and dislikes, there are the gravities of vasanas. It is because of your vasanas, it is because of your tendencies that you like something and you don't like something. The object itself may not be necessarily having characteristic to be liked or disliked. It depends upon your disposition, your tendency body. Because of your tendency, you like something. Because of tendency, you don't like something. Because of tendency, you like something more or less. And because of tendency that you dislike something more or less. It is not only object related. The likes and dislikes is not always object related. What is this object related likes and dislikes? You will, the dirt, you will always dislike. You should always dislike. You will always dislike dirt. So the object such as dirt inherently has something for you to have repulsion, inherently has something for you to have dislike. So edible things, eatable things, now it can be liked or it can be disliked. Some people like sweets, some people don't like sweets. Some people like a food item, some people don't like that food item. So, see, object related likes and dislikes is one thing. And then subjectivity related likes and dislikes is another thing. There is also condition like I like it, I don't like it. I like what you don't like, I don't like what you like. So there is also subjective factor to likes and dislikes. So there are objective aspects to likes and dislikes, and there is subjective aspects of likes and dislikes. They have encounter in worldly realm. They are in encounter. The subjective likes dislikes versus objective likes dislikes. Subject related likes dislikes versus object related likes and dislikes. So it's a battle. So the external world becomes such a realm which has turbulence inherent. The subjective entity is also such that it is inherently turbulence because of the vasana gravities, because of the gravities of vasanas, strong vasanas, weak vasanas, noble vasanas, ignoble vasanas, shubha vasanas, ashubha vasanas, good vasanas, bad vasanas, good tendencies, bad tendencies, virtuous tendencies, vicious tendencies. So they have their dispensations on our mind and psyche. So therefore they create that turbulence. So the mundane activity, mundanity, or what is called as laukika, what is called as prapancha, what is called as samsara in philosophy, there is a lot of turbulence potential. It is perhaps inherently, can be said very easily that it is inherently turbulent. Because we get into relationships. Because what is the worldly activity? We are either with objects, or we are with some people, or we are in a combination of objects and people. That is worldly activity. Objects are outside us and we try to interact with the objects. We take the objects, we reject the objects, we accept the objects, we reject the objects, we use the objects, we grab the objects, we throw the objects. So we interact with objects or we interact with people because we are social animals. So there are band of people whom we like, band of people whom we don't like. And that too again in more or less degree. Similarly, objects, either they are likable objects or they are unlikable objects or dislikable objects, again in more or less degree. Or there is a combination, the things and people. So that is how the realm of the external realm of our activity. Now, yoga is something that is taking place internally. And the suggestion or advocacy or advocating the steadiness of the mind or quietness of the mind is suggested in the internal realm primarily, because external realm is vulnerable to unsteady your mind more and more and more progressively. So mind is vulnerable to unsteadiness in the external realm, and yoga is speaking of something that has to be done internally. Yoga is not an activity which has to be done externally. It has to be done internally. Then what is the kind of interaction? in yoga. You interact with you, yourself, in you aspects. So they are interacting within themselves. What are the interacting within themselves? You, yours, in you, integrally in you aspects. So you are interacting with something which is integrated with you, yours, in you. Whereas in the external world, I interact with you. You interact with someone else. You interact with me. I interact with all of you. All of you interact with me. All of you interact with another set of all of them. So see, what is the profile and culture and process of interaction in the external realm? Where you have to be mindful about the external things. You can't be not aware of external things and then carry out business activity of life. Now here you have to interact within. So where steadiness of the mind is proposed in yoga, understand, which is going to be means of restraint. Because if you recall, I told you that external realm, externalness or externality is not the realm of restraint. That's why our awakeful state is called aniruddhavastha in yoga psychology. Aniruddha means unrestrainable. You can't restrain your own identity. You can't restrain the idea, the notion, the conviction that you are man, you are woman, you are young, you are old, you are this, you are that, you are of this caste and this creed and that creed and this race and that race and this ethnicity and that ethnicity. You can't restrain that. You can't restrain your I. You can't restrain the I, which has its delimitations attached to it, parasites clinging onto it. So you will always identify yourself as a man or woman, young or old, strong or weak, etc., etc. And therefore it is called aniruddhavastha. Aniruddha means unrestrainable. So there it is not being suggested effort to be steady the mind. The suggestion to be steady the mind has come in internal realm where you are interacting with yourself. That's the first thing which needs to be understood. When it is suggested you have to quieten your mind, that means you must be unto yourself and then you have to quieten your mind. Because this is suggested as a means to restrain the mind. Because you can also have steady mind out in the world, but that is not going to restrain your mind. You can have steady mind while you are interacting in the world. That's the realm of karma yoga also. Karma yoga, you are in steady mind when you are out in the worldly activity. The karma yogis are in external realm activity, but they are still with steady mind. But that will not really restrain the mind. The mind will be steady for the sake of being steady. However, that will not become means to restrain the mind. Here, the means to restrain the mind and the means is being suggested as steady condition of the mind or be steadying the mind, be calming the mind. You can be calm while you are out in worldly activity, your business activity, your relationship activity. You can be calm, you can be calming, you can be calm. But then that will not end up in restraint because that field itself is not suitable for restraint, being aniruddhavastha, a wakeful state, aniruddha consciousness. So understand here the realm of activity, internal realm of activity. As I told you many times, in the external realm, at the most, you have a global world to interact with. Still, we are not in that era that we can have planetary interactions or intergalactic interactions. Maybe we'll have to wait for a couple of millennia to have today we have international business, global business, international community, global community, international federation of people, or global federation in organizations and even clubs where people come together, social clubs, social club setup. So it can be regional, it can be national, it can be international, it can be global. Cannot be going beyond still. There is nothing like interplanetary club, interplanetary business. Like you today have multinational corporations, MNCs, multinational, maybe global, but then still we can't extend our radius beyond being global. There is nothing like interplanetary, intergalactic business or association or federation or confederation. So the limit is there that it can be at the most global in our times. It might be perhaps a couple of millennia, after which we might have something interplanetary setups, interplanetary corporations, interplanetary associations, interplanetary federations, interplanetary confederations, intergalactic similar. But then that is far-fetched today. So what is the radius of activity? The radius of activity at the most is global, and global means this planet has radius of 7,000 odd miles. That's all. What is 7,000 odd miles in with reference to universe, which is boundless? Which is 16 billion light years, as astrophysics tells us, astronomers tell us. Where are 7,000 miles and where is 16 billion light years? So in the external realm, at the most you will have 7,000 miles of radius for your activity, diameter for your activity. So radius of some 3,000 odd miles. That's all is your circle. So out in the world, at the most you have world. And inside you have universe. This is what the mystics have told us. Those who have realized realities have told us that within us we have universe. Outside us we have at the most the world to be interacting. That's why it is microcosm. Inside is microcosm. So cosm, cosmos, very word will tell you what is it. Cosmos, not chaos. It is not called chaos, but microcosmos, microcosm. So although we call this as cosmos, but for man, for human psyche and the anthrocentric mindset, it is really chaos. This is what the man has made of man himself. That what is actually archetypally cosmos has become chaos to us. Internally, we have universe. So that is one thing. Understand the realm of activity. When you are out in the universe, when you have to be out in the universe, you must be not petty-minded. You have to become magnanimous. You will become magnanimous. There are gravities for you to become magnanimous rather than being petty. Otherwise, we are parochial actually. But out in the universe, if you are really an astronaut, you are moving in that outer space, you will naturally become magnanimous, and you won't be parochial. But in our business activity of life, become very parochial. You might be a global personality, yet we are parochial compared to universe around us. Anyway, the internal realm, we have microcosm, we have microcosmos, we have universe inside, while outside we have multiverse, outside we have diverse. That's why the Vedantic prudence says it is all Maya outside. So we jump into Maya for our externalization of life. And then naturally we are going to become chaotic. You can't expect cosmos condition, or cosmotic, if I may say so. Cosmotic when you are out in Maya, when you are jumped into the ocean of Maya, you will become chaotic. So basically, understand the realm of activity here. Understand the field of activity. Field of activity, subjectivistic. And otherwise in the world, field of activity, objectivistic, object worldly, object gravitating. Now, here you are free from all those gravities which are objectivistic gravities, object radiated gravities, object drawing gravities. So the clashes of gravities will be kept at bay, which play havoc in our external life, externality of our life, externality of our activity, externalization of our activity. The gravities play havoc. So understand this field of activity within. That's why Arjuna, he was under the influence of world around him, and that's why he said sudushkaram. It is very difficult to restrain the mind, and you are asking me to restrain the mind. But in yoga, the realm is eternal. So see the degree of probability to be steady the mind in the internal realm than the same probability in the external life, external world, externalizing activity, external activity. So the field of activity is totally different. You are interacting with you. You are interacting with yours. Yours is interacting with you. Yours is interacting with yours. You are interacting with in you. In you is interacting with you. In you is interacting with yours. Yours is interacting with in you. So they are all mutually interacting with each other. Phenomenally, your body, mind, breath, senses are interacting with each other. This you experience in yogasanas. That's the characteristic condition of yogasanas, that you are interacting with yourself. They are all integrally yours, and then you are interacting with something which is integral to you. It's a unique field of activity. Now, to be interacting that way, one of the major preparatories is that you must have associated body, mind, breath, senses, etc. They are associated conditions. They are needed conditions. KNEAD, needed conditions. So it's a needed matter of body, mind, breath, senses, organ, psyche, consciousness. So it should be associated conditions, escalating to needed conditions, and then further escalating to unified condition. So the field is such that it is encouraging you to become unified. Now, see, in unified condition, what is the scope for any tussle, battle, conflict? While in external condition, there is a lot of scope and encouragement and potentials for you to have battle. You can make that world outside you as a battlefield. Many of us battle in the life of a wakeful state condition of consciousness. So it becomes battlefield. We make it battlefield, and it can become battlefield because it is diverse. Outside us, we have diverse. Although we say that outside is universe, looking at the sky, you might say it is endless universe. But you can also characterize that there is diverse aspect. It is more diverse to us. It is more diverse for us, or we make it diverse. But in the internal realm, there is a lot of encouragement scope to get unified. When you get unified, very gesture tells you that there is oneness. When there is oneness, and when there is therefore no two-nesses, where is the field for conflict? So in yoga, you are supposed to identify this aspect as a preparatory, where you go for unified state within yourself. You get unified with all that is you, all that is constituting you, all the constituents of you, all the constituents of you, yours in you. You are going for a unified state. When you are going for a unified state, it's a different field. So, there it is quite a practical kind of suggestion that you should be steady the mind. The mind has potentials to become steady. In unified conditions, the mind is more gravitating to become steady rather than being unsteady. In diverse condition, it is more prone to become unsteady, and then it is Herculean task to really be steady the mind. And even if you be steady the mind in the external realm, some people are with steady mind in their business activity of life, but then that steadiness is not really qualifying to go for restraint. While when it happens in the internal realm, if you really be steady the mind, be calm the mind, it can become means for restraint. The restraint is always within. The field to be restraining one's mind is within. The field to be restraining the mind is not without, is not outside. It is within. The field to restrain the mind is within. So, quiet mind, steadied mind will go for restraint quite naturally. While a steady mind in the external realm will not go for restraint. Yes, steady mind will just stay a steady mind, perhaps. That is what happens to wise people. Who are wise people? Whose mind is steady while they are out in the world. You don't call a person wise person when the mind is chaotic, when the mind is turbulent, when the mind is unsteady. You don't call that person a wise person. So, mind can be steady in the external realm as well. And that is called karma yoga, because we can't be all the time unto ourselves. We'll have to be out in society. So karma yoga comes everywhere. Whether you are a jnani, whether you are in dhyana yogi or gnana yogi or bhakti yogi, you can't really cut yourself from the world around you, the society around you. So they will be having steady mind with the help of karma yogic dharma. The karma yoga dharma will give them steadiness outside as well. But however, that steadiness will not culminate into restraint, while this steadiness in the internal realm will culminate into restraint. So this has to be understood here. Therefore, the means of restraint here, steadiness of the mind is mentioned. This is not the steadiness while you are out in the world. This is steadiness of the mind when you are inside. Now understand the plight of a common man to be steady while one is inside. Very worldly man, practical minded man, and workaholic man, etc., etc. Very mundane man. He becomes more turbulent inside. You suggest any Tom, Dick, and Harry to go inwardly, he will find more turbulence. So he is more steady by going out. Stepping out of the house, he is more quiet. Stepping inside oneself, he is more disquiet. So this is what is the fate of a very worldly man, very materialistic man, very practical minded man, outwardly man, who thinks to externalize one's mind itself is life. They are very uncomfortable within, because again, as yoga postulates, scanty nirodha samskars. Therefore, for you to really go inside and be comfortably within yourself, you need to have lots of nirodha samskars. With plethora of vyuthana samskars, you will be more mercurial, you will be more mad when you go inside. There are many of us who really become mad when we try to go inwards inside us, and therefore it's fearsome for a very mundane man, a man who is sunk in samsara and prapancha, worldliness. It's fearsome zone to go inwards. Whereas if you have plethora of rich nirodha samskars, good amount of nirodha samskars, you can comfortably go inside, and it really will be heaven for you. So those who have that potential, so there's a makeup of man. Some people have this makeup of mind that they can go easily subjectivistically towards oneself. Whereas there are many people who have difficulties to be with oneself, to go towards oneself. Fearsome. It is fearful for one to go with oneself, towards oneself. This is because of that nirodha samskar and vyuthana samskar proportion. The magnitude of vyuthana samskars and nirodha samskars. So therefore, for yoga, nirodha samskars must be enriched. Then only you can proceed towards abhyasa in true sense of the term. That's why the verse in Bhagavad Gita which I recall, Uddharet Atmanatmanam, that verse in Bhagavad Gita. Atmaiva bandhu, Atmaiva ripu. We ourselves are our friends and we ourselves are our enemies. Now, when oneself is more enemy for oneself, one doesn't want to go there. This is what happens to materialistic people, because they themselves are enemy to themselves, and therefore they don't want to go subjectivistically, and the friends are outside in the world for them. All of you know that you have friends outside. We don't try to identify friend inside. We don't have friends inside. We don't try to identify friends inside. Even if you have, we don't try to identify. So that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Uddharet Atmanatmanam Natmanam Avasadet. So Atma eva bandhu, Atma eva ripu. Ripu means enemy. So many people, those who are not disposed to yoga, why is it that they are not disposed to yoga? Because they themselves are enemy to themselves. Because they have only friends outside and they themselves are enemy to themselves. They cannot put up with themselves. A mystic poet has said a wonderful expression here of a mystic poet. Most disgusting thing in this world for you. Which is the most disgusting thing for you in this world? You yourself, you are disgusting to you yourself. So much so that you do not really want to put up with you. That's why you don't want to go out in society, out in world. You want to have life partners because you can't put up with yourself. Putting up with yourself is disgusting. That's why people want to go out. They want to be outwardly. They get energy, they collect energies by going outwardly, by going out. Remaining inwardly, there is sapping of energy. They feel the energy is sapping. And therefore, there are some people who are in habit of going every evening out. And then they collect energies by going out. Some people go and mingle into bustle of crowd, and they come out energetic. It's so strange about human psyche that they want to take a stroll through a crowded street, and they go for evening walk, or they go out. They get into the crowded streets and they feel energetic. They go and do shopping. They feel energetic. They go and do some window shopping. They come back energetic. They go out and spend some time with friend circle. They come back energetic. But ask them to go for confinement and seclusion. They are uncomfortable. They are almost like fish out of waters. So mystic poet says that the most disgusting thing for oneself is that oneself is most disgusting. Therefore, we don't want to put up with ourselves too long. We want some associations. We want some associates. We want some friends. We want some company. All alone, we can't stay too long. It is really disgusting or fearsome, fearful, and we can't really put up with ourselves. So we can't really put up with ourselves. That's the plight of the mankind who is caught in Maya. So you are most disgusting to you yourself. We are most disgusting to we ourselves. I am more disgusting to myself. Therefore, I don't stay with me. I want a companion, I want an associate, I want a friend, I want a life partner. Either it is disgusting or fearful, fearsome. This is because dearth of Nirodha Samskar. Therefore, in classical yoga, we are advised to replenish Nirodha Samskars, build up Nirodha Samskars, and harvest Nirodha Samskars, grow Nirodha Samskars, reinforce Nirodha Samskars, add to Nirodha Samskars, and discourage Vyuthana Samskars. And that is why I sometimes quoted that sutra of Patanjali. Vyuthana nirodha samskara yoho abhibhav pradurbhavo nirodha kshana chittanvayo chittasya nirodha paranamaha. So we have these two potentials, Vyuthana and Nirodha. It's a wheel. So sometimes we are distracted, sometimes we are quiet, sometimes we are restrained, sometimes we are unrestrained. So sometimes we are turbulent, sometimes we are calm. So this will be alternating. Everyone has this wheel. Nobody is without this wheel. But someone has a larger part of Nirodha in the wheel, and most of us have a larger part of Vyuthana in our wheel. And therefore, more often we have Vyuthana, very rarely, scantily we have Nirodha. But the wheel is there. According to yoga psychology, yoga psychology, that the wheel is there in everybody's mind. And it will be rotating. And that's why sometimes we are quiet, sometimes we are disquiet. Internally, essentially, organically. From within, we are quiet and disquiet. Sometimes quietening objects are outside, but we don't become quiet. We still remain disquiet, unquiet. So there are quietening objects, there are disquietening objects. But there is also quietening something organically within us and disquietening something organically within us. That is the wheel of these samskars, Vitthana Nirodha Samskar, Abhibhava Pradurbhavo, appearance, disappearance. The wheel will be rotating. So something comes on surface. So when the Vyuthana is on surface, your mind is turbulent, your mind is distracted, your mind is worldly, your mind is materialistic. When the Nirodha is on surface, your mind is restrained, your mind is quiet, your mind is sublime, your mind is self-worldly. So, the point is, the field here is internally. When you are well disposed to be going unto oneself, and yoga trains you to go towards oneself. It doesn't just expect that you should be comfortable unto oneself. It trains you to be oneself by its scheme of asanas. Asanas are not physical culture endeavors. They help you, they encourage you, they train you, they educate you to be working within yourself. You start interacting subjectivistically. Yours in you. You start interacting with this internal society, which is of universal scale, which is microcosmic society. Out in the world, we don't have microcosmic society. We have macro chaotic society, or micro chaotic society even. So the field of activity, understand here. So the field of activity is considered that it is in the internal realm. And then that suggestion has taken place, that effort to be steady the mind is Abhyasa. So this yoga Abhyasa is always internal. It is done within. It is not done without. It is not done externally. So the field of activity must be characterized. Field of activity must be set right. How do you set right? By inculcating, imbibing Nirodha Samskars, and by discouraging, ousting Vyuthana Samskars. Like conservation of field. What do they do? Conservation of field. So what is not integrally part of that field, they remove it. They weed it out. That is conservation. It is not to conserve something as it is. Conserve something which is essentially it as it is. For that, we have to weed out something. We have to remove something from the field. So land conservation is the way to take care of land. So we conserve what is essentially the characteristic of the land or the ground. So that's ground conservation. So the field, we have to carry out this conservation by samskar management. discourage vithan samskars, show them out gate, and open out the in gate for nirodha samskars, encourage them to come in, create field suitable for them to come in, gather within, escalate within. So asana, pranayama, japa, dhyana, yamaniyamas even, they will encourage for you to go subjectivistically inwards. That's why yamaniyamas are moral, ethical practices. Because there is no need of moral, ethical practice when you are within yourself. We need to be morally, ethically sound when we interact with the world outside us. That is tested when you are outside. It is not really tested when you are unto yourself, within yourself. So, yamaniyamas are not moral, ethical principles. They are ethico-religious principles. At some point in time, we did consider this in our earlier sessions. So the field of activity, concept of field of activity. You are the field for you to work on you, for you, by you, with you, in you, on you. So see the field of activity. While in the external world, maybe you will work for others, or you will work for yourself with the help of others. You will work for yourself from others. So the others aspect is very much there in our externality of consciousness, externality of our mind, externality of our activity. We are combination, we and they, I and you. So either we want to do something for the you category or they category, or we want something for something by them to be done for us. We want to be benefactors or we want to be beneficiaries in social frame of mind, in social profile of ours. We want to be benefactors or beneficiaries, or benefactors and beneficiaries. In the internal realm, you are a benefactor of you, you are beneficiary of you. So it's a totally different field of activity. So this is also a factor to distinguish. In the external realm, you identify who is the benefactor, who is beneficiary. You can identify that. So it will be between you and the others. Now there is no category of others within us. It is all ours. My body, mind, breath, my senses, my organs, my psyche, my consciousness. It's all mine. So, it is a unique realm of activity, field of activity. So we must be familiar with activity in this unique field, which asanas, yogic practices prepare you. In yoga, you have to work with yourself. You have to work on yourself. You have to work by you, with you, on you, in you, on you, etc., etc. You yourself. You have to learn from you yourself. You have to teach you yourself. You have to be your benefactor. You have to be your beneficiary. So it's a unique realm. So the field, that's why the concept of field of activity is important. Where yoga is going to be done, as you think, it is not out on the mat. Even when you do it on a mat, you have to do within. So that's why it is subjectivistic realm. So we must develop the disposition to work subjectivistically, which a worldly man doesn't develop. Mundane man doesn't develop. Outwardly man, exhibitive consciousness mind doesn't develop. So we must have inhibitive consciousness rather than exhibitive consciousness. To go out in the world, we need to be having exhibitive consciousness. We must be exhibitive. We are all exhibits. We make ourselves exhibits. When you want to go out, why do you look at the mirror before you step out of the door? Why do you look into the mirror? Because you want to make yourself an exhibit. Because others will be looking at you, want to draw your attention. There's a very strange thing with which we will culminate the session. I will tell you that, relate that to you. The women clan. The women clan, it's a very strange psychology of women. When they go out, they want to make them as a piece of exhibit. They want people to look at them, while they don't like people looking at them. What is called as lousy looks. You make yourself attractive to draw your attention, draw the attention of others while you are out in the roads, we are going out somewhere. Why do you make up yourself? Why do you prepare yourself? Why do you trim yourself? Because you want to become an exhibit. You want to become a showpiece while you go out, step out of the house. But then if people look at you, and then you reject their looking at you by the manner in which they look at you. You make them to look at you like that, but you don't want to look at them like that. It's a very strange kind of condition. Then the woman will end up saying, oh, lousy looks. This fellow has a lousy looks, had a lousy looks, which you don't like, you don't tolerate. But you make yourself an exhibit, and that's why you want to trim yourself, put on all cosmetics on your face, dress wonderfully well to become attractive. You become attractive, but you don't want that attraction by any Tom, Dick and Harry after an extent. And that's why there's quite a strange condition. So, to go out in the world, we need exhibitive consciousness. To go within, yoga psychology speaks of inhibitive consciousness. And for Nirodha, by Nirodha, you will develop this. For Nirodha, you have to develop this. And asana, pranayam, or yogic principles, yogic practices, yogic conduct of life, yogic practices on the plane of body, mind, senses, psyche, consciousness, motor system, cognitive system. It all is to encourage this and evolve this inhibitive consciousness and nirodha samskars. So understand the difference in field of activity when you are working out in the world as somebody, while you are working within yourself when you are nobody is nobody is somebody. You are within yourself. There is no other thing, other one within yourself. So it's a totally different field of activity, and there it is quite reasonable to suggest effort to be steady the mind. It is not reasonable for me to advocate that be steady the mind by taking you to a chaotic marketplace, railway station, airport, and then it is not reasonable for me to suggest be quiet. I should take you to a temple, shrine, a hilltop, and suggest be quiet. Be steady in your mind, quiet on your mind. I can suggest you by taking to hilltop or to a natural resort or to such a place or a shrine, a temple, a quiet place, a remote place, isolated place on the outskirts. I should take you to the outskirts of the town and then tell you, let's try to become quiet in the mind. Or I can suggest you to become quiet in your mind, rather than taking you to a bazaar, a crowded place, bustling with crowd, noise. It's not the place. It's not reasonable to give that advice. That's why this advice to restrain the mind, quieten the mind is quite reasonable considering the field of activity. So, this is a matter that one needs to ponder over. Concept of field of activity. In what field, what activity should be carried out? What field is suitable for what activity? What activity encourages you to go to that field? And what field encourages you for that activity? So the concept of field of activity is so important. And then it becomes reasonable advice to be steady the mind, be calm the mind. So I should take you to temple of your personal deity and then say and then advise you to be calm your mind. That is a reasonable advice, rather than taking you to bustling marketplace and then advising you to be calm the mind, be steady the mind. So try to extract the essence from today's lesson. So with that, we'll end the session today here. Namaskar, all of you.